Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 2002 made-for-television family film. It's a Very Muppet Christmas Movie. Now, I'm a big fan of the Muppets. I grew up with the Muppets, the Muppet Show, the Muppet Movie, all of the Muppet movies. But this is not really one that I watched that much. I think I might have seen it one other time before the most recent viewing, and I can see why this is one of the more lesser known and lesser regarded Muppet movies, but I still had some fun with it. Now, before I get around to sharing more of my thoughts on this film, I want to give a special shout out to Ryan for requesting this video. And if there's another film, TV show, or topic that you would like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to either my PayPal or to my Patreon. Link to both is in the video description down below, and I will try to get to your request as soon as I possibly can. Now, it's a Very Muppet Christmas Movie. Is directed by Kirk Thatcher, and this is his first film. Prior to this, he worked on other Muppet projects. He also did other various different jobs throughout the film industry. So he wasn't completely inexperienced, and that definitely does show here. This is his first film, but I felt the direction was actually rather good, especially for a made for television film. It looked slick and had a fair amount of style to it. It definitely seemed like he was very comfortable shooting the puppets. And the very signature zany, wild, over the top Muppet energy that the Muppets are known for was very effectively captured by Thatcher when it comes to his direction. I genuinely liked his direction in this. I felt it was decently dynamic, fairly strong, weren't really a lot of weak points, and yeah, I would say that this was a pretty pretty good, if not great at points, first time out. And there were other shots too that didn't even involve the Muppets that were also really well done for a TV movie. Just had a really nice look to it, and I'd honestly do attribute that to what Thatcher did as well as everyone else with the production. It's written by Tom Martin and Jim Lewis, and this script is in a lot of ways kind of like a extended Muppet Show storyline because it involves the Muppets and they're trying to set up a big Christmas show at the Muppet Theater because they need to raise a certain amount of money to save the theater because there's some a greedy banker who is trying to put them out of business. She's trying to set things up where she's going to foreclose on the theater and bulldoze it and put a trendy nightclub in its place, and the villainous banker is named Bitterman, and she is going to extreme lengths to try to make this happen, including manipulating Pepe and getting him to join her and utilize the one copy of the contract between her, I mean her bank and the Muppet Theater to essentially screw the Muppets over because she changes the contract and changes it so the deadline is earlier for the money. And so it definitely does have a feel of like a Muppet Show episode, which I don't really have a problem with because I like the Muppet Show. And there definitely are a lot of Christmas elements to it and celebrity cameos, but I didn't feel that they were too distracting. The Christmas elements, though, like it starts out Christmassy. We even have like the snowman from the Rankin and Bass specials, voiced by Mel Brooks of all people, who is starting to narrate the movie, but then he gets essentially forced off the film in a fourth wall breaking moment, which was kind of clever. And there are some clever comedic bits in here. There are some lines that are surprisingly dirty and edgy for a Muppet film, but adult comedy was never really something that was completely out of the Muppets' range. I think a lot of people look at the Muppets as just kid stuff, and they forget that during the Muppet Show, there were adult jokes. So it wasn't really just something that was strictly for kids. And so I feel that's actually something that was nice to see again when it comes to this script. And there were some really funny moments from Gonzo or Pepe, and the whole Christmas show itself, how initially it was going to be this really pretentious, ridiculous show, Cirque du Soleil, but it was Lame, um, and then that fell through, and then they decided to do their own thing, and then it became like a parody of Moulin Rouge called Moulin Scrooge. And that whole scene was fun. Definitely had a lot of Muppet carnage and chaos that I've come to love. And then something happens, and Kermit feels like he's wasted everybody's time, and his dreams have hurt his friends. And so he decides to go out onto a park bench and freeze to death. And then that leads to Whoopi Goldberg's God being asked for help by a character played by David Arquette, Daniel, an angel, who is trying to get help for Kermit. And so now it's this disjointed kind of weird movie now, because now it's just Whoopi Goldberg's God with Daniel watching scenes that happened with the Muppets and what led to Kermit freezing himself to death on this park bench. And this is happening, so eventually God will realize that something needs to be done to help Kermit and the Muppets. And there's a lot of stuff that just is just random. Like now you have characters from the Grinch Who Stole Christmas movie, the Whoville people with the creepy makeup, and Fozzie gets dressed up like he's a Christmas tree. So now he's got all this green stuff on him. And so they assume that he's a Grinch because he takes a bag, because he's trying to help Kermit out by taking this bag full of the money that they raised from the Moulin Scrooge performance to two Bittermen before 6 o'clock so they can save the theater. But of course, through a wild series of circumstances, Fozzie isn't able to get there in time because the bag gets mixed up and he gets chased after. I mean, gets chased around by the Whoville people, and a random Steve Irwin impersonator, which that bit was just really out of left field and didn't fit at all. Was just painful to watch. This guy with this fake ass Australian accent trying to be Steve Irwin and trying to capture Fozzie. I don't know what that was about. And even leading up to the bit where Fozzie goes through all the lasers to get to Bitterman's office, there's a really awkward scene where Fozzie's talking to the doorman, and it's this Asian guy. And it's just this really uncomfortable bit of racist caricature comedy with this Asian guy who doesn't speak proper English, and the whole joke is that he doesn't know how to speak English properly, and Fozzie can't understand him. And I'm like, oh my god, like really? Even in 1992, this would have been out of place. In 2002, it's really out of place. I'm not a prude. I'm not the type of guy who is all about, PC and being politically correct, but this is just bad comedy. And this is just comedy for the sake of, oh, he's Asian and he speaks funny and ha ha ha. And I've never found that funny. And it's really lazy and bad and offensive, especially uh, now. And even back then in 2002, that was pretty racially insensitive. And if it was funny, then maybe I could deal with it. Like, oh, you think it's going to go that route. But then the Asian guy messes with Fozzie or points out the ridiculousness of the entire thing. But no, that's not what happens. Fozzie fails in trying to get the money to Bitterman before 6 o'clock. So now the theater is going to be foreclosed on. And now Kermit, due to words that were said to him by Bitterman, decides to just go sit on a park bench and die. And that's what leads to Daniel showing up uh, after he's been given these powers by God to try to convince Kermit that there's a reason to keep on living and to be there for his family and be there for his friends and be there for the world. And then it becomes It's a Wonderful Life parody. And I see what the script is trying to do, is trying to do different parodies of all these other Christmas films and Christmas specials, but the way that it's set up, it's just kind of ill-timed and not very well done. There are some moments where it works, like becomes a really warped take on It's a Wonderful Life, where Kermit goes to Club Dot and you've got like Scooter doing dancing in a cage, and it's really messed up but also really funny if you ask me personally. And Kermit eventually realizes that the world is better off with him in it, because he sees all this stuff. Fozzie is picking his pocket because he's homeless. Gonzo is homeless too and trying to sing and trying to get some money at the local mall. Bitterman is taken over completely because there's no one to really stand in her way. And he goes to see Miss Piggy, and it seems like she recognizes him, but ultimately she decides to still remain some lonely cat lady and forces Kermit out of her apartment. And there is a really sweet moment with Kermit and this alternate universe Gonzo where they sing this song, Everyone Matters. And it's actually a song that's featured as a reprise later on in the movie. And I like how it transitions from a really depressing Christmas song where Gonzo was talking about how it's the most miserable Christmas. And then Kermit comes in and he's like, no, everyone matters. And then becomes this really nice musical number. And I just felt like that whole bit, like the It's a Wonderful Life parody, is definitely one of the stronger parts of this script. I mean, you even have a callback to Doc Hopper. So that was nice. It's pretty messed up, but like that's the best type of thing for this dystopian future with Kermit not in it. Now Doc Hopper's Frog's Legs is a massively popular restaurant chain. Um, but eventually, Daniel was able to figure things out and send Kermit back to the world where he was born in, and he has this newfound appreciation for life, and he's very energetic and very lively about it, to the annoyance of his his fellow Muppets. But everything works out in the end. Pepe used the money that he was being given by Bitterman to make the Muppet Theater a historical landmark, so Bitterman can't do anything to it. And Bitterman and Miss Piggy get in a fight, and it's like a parody of an old kung fu movie. It was kind of fun. And the Muppets get their theater back. They've realized that the real gift is each other, and it's not necessarily the theater or the money. And so it's got a good heart to it and a good message. And it ends with the Muppets singing Christmas carols. And it just seems like a film that, from a story perspective, it's got some good ideas here. I like some of the more adult jokes, like Pepe talking about a topless bar, Gonzo making a dig at the stars being 40% off after Christmas. Um, and I don't mind Bitterman. I think Bitterman is actually written as a very fun villain. But there's just a lot of stuff about it that just seems like it's not that well structured, and definitely seems a bit too unfocused. And some of the gags are really dated and really don't hold up, like the Steve Irwin parody and the Grinch Who Stole Christmas live action stuff. And it's just one of those movies where there are a lot better Muppet films that you can watch than this. For this being like the last Muppet thing that the Muppets did before they were bought by Disney, it's kind of a little bit underwhelming, but it's still fine. It's still okay. And it still has its heart in the right place, and there's still some good moments in it. And it does have at least one really memorable musical number, and Everyone Matters. The voiceover work from all the Muppet performers, it's definitely a genuinely a good thing about the movie. Steve Whitmire, he once again does some really great work as Kermit and Rizzo and Beaker. Dave Goles, he voices Gonzo and Bunsen Honeydew and Waldorf and Zoot, and does some great work there. So does Bill Beretta as Pepe, as well as a bunch of other characters, and Eric Jacobson as Miss Piggy, because this was the first one that they did without Frank Oz's involvement. Um, Brian Henson as Scooter, and a bunch of other performers who played different Muppets. They all did some great work, some really fun, lively voiceover work. Definitely sounded like their characters. And then you have a bunch of cameos. Like, you even have like cameos from the cast of Scrubs, because there's a Scrubs reference in this. And if you never saw the show, that's a gag that would definitely fall flat. But you have David Arquette, who plays Daniel the angel who appears to Kermit at Christmas, and it's a good performance by him. And he does a great job playing this very kind of aloof and just out of his element character, this nerdy kind of guy. In a lot of ways, it's almost like it's Dewey. Like, he's doing Dewey, but what if Dewey was an angel and helping the Muppets? Matthew Lillard is also in this as Luc Fromage, this French choreographer who did the whole pretentious Cirque du Soleil Christmas a show that was a total flop. And it was fun to see him play, this over the top Muppet character, and also to see him in another film with David Arquette. Honestly, I wish the two of them shared a scene together. I don't know how they would have made that work, but that would have been a lot of fun. Joan Cusack is an absolute blast to watch as Rachel Bitterman. I love her performance in this. You could tell that she's having an absolute blast of a time, just having the best time ever playing this evil banker lady. And it's just such a fun performance to watch. It's like she's able to channel her Black Widow character from Adam's Family Values again, and she was so good in that role. So it was just so much fun to see her play a scenery chewing a bad guy again, or bad gal. Um, Whoopi Goldberg, she's fine as the boss, God, the creator of the universe. William H. Macy plays an angel who doesn't believe in Daniel. Um, Mel Brooks voices Sam the Snowman, the parody Joe Snow from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. You've got Chantel Strand and Robin Mosley who play the Nutwat characters, the parodies of Cindy Lou Who and Lou Who from How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Cameron McDonald, he's the guy who did the really crappy parody of Steve Irwin. And then you also have like Dave Squatch Ward, who plays a Santa Claus in this. You have cameo guest stars by Carson Daly, who plays himself, Kelly Ripa, who's asked by Kermit to help with the Christmas show, but she declines. Molly Shannon declines because it's insinuated that Kermit and her were involved in some kind of relationship, and that's just weird. Um, Robert Smigel as Triumph the Insult Comic Dog, and of course he does the whole like your show is good for me to poop on. That I never cared for that stupid dog anyway. It was such a really dumb one note gag. It was like, oh, I'm a puppet, a little dog, and I always end every insult with for me to poop on. Like it was just such a lazy bit of comedy and lazy jokes. Joe Rogan plays himself in a parody of Fear Factor that's really messed up. It's like it's a future where 90% of every show on television is reality TV, and he hosts Fear Factor, and Rizzo the Rat is in it. And this is from the alternate universe where if Kermit wasn't born, and Rizzo is going to be eaten by the contestant for Fear Factor because this whole thing is like you got to face your fears, you got to face the rat, and then you have to eat it. And then Rizzo's like, "Hey, that wasn't in my contract." So like that was very messed up, but I love that kind of comedy. So I thought that was actually pretty fun. Um, but yeah, I mean, there was some fun stuff by the cameos. Snoop Dogg had a cameo in a deleted scene. I could see why they deleted it, to be honest. Um, the music is by Mark Waters, and it's fine for the kind of film that it is. It definitely is very cheery. The cinematography is by Tony Westman, and I thought he did for the most part a pretty decent job with the cinematography. I also felt the editing by Greg Featherman was more of the same. And I just have to give a lot of props to the puppet performers, the Muppet performers, especially considering the fact that there's a lot of stuff that's going on behind the scenes that was making things pretty difficult. Because veteran Muppet performer Jerry Nelson, he was in really poor health while they were filming it. So because of that, a lot of his characters had to be puppeteered by different people and dubbed by Nelson in post production. So because of that, uh, I want to give the puppet performers some extra kudos because that definitely is some stuff that's pretty difficult to do. I know that there's some dumb 9/11 connection that some people have tried to make with this, some kind of a joke and gag that's been repeated over and over again. It was dumb when it was first mentioned, and it's still dumb now. I don't understand any of this nonsense. It's not funny. It's just random bullshit, if you ask me. Oh, Kermit caused 9/11. Like, I've never thought that was funny, but that's just me personally. Um, yeah, I would say if you're a Muppet fan and you want to watch something a little bit different for a Muppet Christmas instead of the Muppet Christmas Carol, this is worth a watch. There is some fun Muppet stuff, some fun Muppet mayhem, but it's not really that well written. And some of the gags don't really hold up that well. But you know what? I didn't mind it. I had some fun with it. But I can see why some people aren't really that into it, especially in comparison to other Muppet movies. I would say the Muppet Family Christmas special from the 80s is definitely better than this. And so is Muppet Christmas Carol. But this was still fine. Um, anyway, thanks for watching my review of It's a Very Muppet Christmas Movie. And until next time, I'll see you later. See ya.